Boruto will die or watch his friends die. This isn't even a theory. These are simply the two options that Boruto has to pick from. And to be honest, there is no right answer, as this is what we're going to be discussing in today's video. We're going to be discussing both outcomes and where it would lead us to when it comes to the story. And the first thing that we have to examine is Boruto watching his friends die, as this is essentially what Kashin Koji is pushing Boruto towards, which is to leave Matsuri and Ryu up to Team 7 to be able to deal with. And obviously, this also includes the guys from the Land of Wind. And this is simply due to the fact that Boruto can't join the fight because of Jiraiya. If Boruto ends up going there, Jiraiya will likely pull up, and this will eventually lead to Boruto versus Jiraiya, and Boruto simply stands no chance at the current moment against a foe like Jiraiya. Kashin Koji makes it seem as though this is 100% going to happen if Boruto ends up leaving and going to help Team 7 deal with Ryu and Matsuri, which means that it's basically up to them to be able to deal with the likes of the Senju. However, the plan that Kashin Koji is going towards is not a plan that is going to be used once. Boruto, in fact, is actually never supposed to go and fight these Senjus, not until the weaker level Senjus are dealt with, and thus Boruto now has a chance to go and deal with Jiraiya, as this is essentially the plan that Kashin Koji is going with, and this was described in chapter 16, as Boruto is supposed to lay low while others end up taking care of the lower level Senjus. Kashin Koji's plan is quite simple, and it dives into the idea that Jiraiya is going to continue minding his own business. He's not going to go after Himawari because Himawari is in the village, and as we saw him in the last chapter, he enjoys the village and doesn't want to bring it any harm due to the books and the various culture that he enjoys in Konoha. And since Boruto is hidden, leading to Ryu and Matsuri going to investigate him, all he has to do is continue doing what he's been doing, reading books and getting more information, meaning that Jiraiya is not going to be active. Now during this time, other shinobi like Team 7 and what we're seeing at the moment are supposed to be the ones that deal with the Senju, fighting the Senju and trying to collect their Thorn Soul without causing too much trouble so that Jiraiya never ends up trying to back up the Senju. If Jiraiya ends up approaching, according to Kashin Koji, the first thing that they must do is flee. This is the process that they're going to be repeating for the rest of the Senju until Jiraiya is left alone, or until they have dealt enough damage to the Senjus and have already started to collect their Torn Soul. This is most likely what they're going to do to try and get the likes of Sasuke, because if Sasuke is brought back, he could be a greater aid to the village depending on the method he comes back, and the likes of Matsuri, Shinki, all these various people, if they are brought back. Maybe don't include Bug because he doesn't seem like the type to fight. He was a guy of old age, but everybody else is a fighter, so they would essentially be weakening Jiraiya's manpower and thus allowing for a fight that is a lot more in Konoha's favor when they finally end up attacking Jiraiya, trying to eliminate the threat that he is. This plan requires that Boruto ends up staying hidden and not making any moves, which basically means that he is putting all of his faith in his friends. However, his friends haven't gone through the same level of training that he has, and when discussing the likelihood of it happening, or the likelihood of his friends actually being able to defeat the likes of Ryu and Matsuri, Kashin Koji says that it is not high. Not high is something that could be interpreted in multiple ways. Is this a little bit higher than 50-50, but not high enough for you to say that they're outright going to win? Or is it less than 50% where there is a chance that it ends up working out, however, that chance still is low? And you also have to understand why Boruto may have a problem listening to this condition, and that's simply due to the fact that Kashin Koji is trying to prevent the worst future. However, a bad future and the worst future are still futures that Boruto is not trying to go down towards, meaning that if Boruto does end up following Kashin Koji's plan, averting the worst future from taking place, he still doesn't want the future that ends up happening to be one that is bad, and thus since Boruto is a singularity of fate, he does hold some level of control over the future that does end up happening. And that's why Boruto choosing these various outcomes is one that is going to end up shaping the future that he ends up living at. And if Boruto ends up going down this path of letting his friends battle the Senju until Jira's manpower is weakened enough when they stand a higher chance, that decision may end up leading towards a future when none of his friends are alive, or at least a great deal of his friends end up dying. And that is one path that the story could take. And the other path that the story could take is one where Boruto doesn't act upon this. We've already seen Boruto show some resentment towards this plan. Boruto is not on the same page with Kashin Koji due to the fact that the likelihood of it actually working out is not 100%. And since Boruto is a singularity of fate, his actions do hold a lot of weight. But Kashin Koji doesn't want Boruto to end up making those actions. And that one action that Boruto could take that Kashin Koji doesn't want him to do is that of leaving and trying to go and protect his friends. However, it is a lot easier to say when the plan is going right, but when it is going wrong, it's going to be a lot harder for Boruto to end up making that decision of staying put. We have already seen a Boruto who throughout the time skip has been one that is nonchalant, going down the plan, listening to everything that Kashin Koji has told him. Has it really worked out? We can't say for sure. All we can say for the moment is that none of the actions that Kashin Koji has taken have prevented the worst future from taking place. We have seen delays, but no preventions. So Boruto, this is the first time that I've seen Boruto be so antsy in trying to figure out how things are working out, as he was pressing Ada to see if, are Sarada, Mitsuki, Konohamaru, are they doing okay? He was trying to figure out if everything was fine in the land of wind. And thus we can already see that Boruto is not as calm as he once was. So now, coupled with the fact that there is a possibility, and one that is quite high, of it going wrong, Boruto may be emotional and thus make a move that goes against Kashin Koji, meaning that he will go and assist Sarada and Mitsuki if Ryu ends up discovering their plan and thus gets mad and tries to kill Sarada and Mitsuki, as this has already been something that he has discussed, saying he would have done so if he didn't realize that they were kind of cool, just like Jira had said. So if this option, Boruto does get emotional, does see that Sarada and Mitsuki are getting beaten, and thus he is trying to prevent their deaths and makes his way to fight the likes of Ryu, Boruto ends up probably destroying the likes of Ryu. Obviously this is a most likely scenario, but Jira sees this as an opportunity, and thus he ends up making his way towards Boruto. Jira has multiple methods of killing Boruto. One that we have already seen is him sniping Boruto from long range. He could snipe him, he could fight him in close quarters. There are multiple ways Jira could end up defeating Boruto, thus the likelihood of Boruto dying, just like Kashin Koji has said multiple times, is close to 100%. Thus Boruto's death would be inevitable. And this is essentially the moral dilemma that Boruto is facing. These two decisions is one that Boruto will eventually have to make, and there is simply no turning back. As if Sarada and Mitsuki end up dying here, Boruto will have to maintain this stance for the end of time, until we end up preventing this worst future from taking place. But something that is quite interesting that we hear from Kishimoto when he was talking about Boruto's character, he says that what defines Boruto's character is the actions that he takes and the reasoning behind them. This is what is going to lead to us seeing a difference between Naruto and Boruto. And obviously I'm not saying that Naruto would pick a certain outcome and Boruto would pick the other, but in general what ends up defining us as humans are the actions that we take, regardless of the position that we are in. As on one moral standpoint, the right decision would be to protect your friends, would be to always try and do whatever is necessary to protect your loved ones from dying, and to protect anybody who doesn't deserve to die from ending up dying, which would mean that Boruto is supposed to go and save his friends. But on the other hand, him dying if he attempts to go and save his friends would now mean that the planet will not be protected. As with everything that Kashin Koji has seen in the future, he needs Boruto in order to prevent this worst future from taking place. So does Boruto protect his friends, thus leading to the entire planet dying, or does Boruto then choose to side with protecting the entire planet, and thus he watches his friends slowly and maturely end up passing? This is essentially the moral dilemma, and the actions that Boruto will take will end up defining his character. As to me, if you were to ask me personally, what is the point of protecting the entire planet if it means that you watch your entire family end up dying? What is the reason for living at that point if it is not to live with your family? If you end up protecting the planet and thus all your loved ones end up dying, was there truly a point in all of the actions that you were taking? And we're going to be seeing what option Boruto ends up taking. So what option does Boruto truly end up taking? And if you look at the time skip, what most people will end up telling you is that since Boruto is alive, since Boruto doesn't end up dying, and we see a Kawaki who's there, it most likely tells us that Boruto chose to follow what Kashin Koji told him. The village is destroyed, which could come from Jura or potentially a different other threat, but we don't see any of Boruto's loved one alive, leaving Kawaki and Boruto. And to some, this does reinforce the entire point that Boruto ended up choosing to follow Kashin Koji's plan and protect the planet instead of protecting his friends. And I wouldn't blame Boruto from taking that path. However, we can't use that time skip scene to necessarily justify the option that Boruto would take. And to me, with everything that I've seen regarding Boruto's character, I simply can't see Boruto choosing that path. What Boruto will most likely do is that Boruto will most likely go and save his friends. And this is where we now tap into a bit of theory mode, discussing what could truly happen when Boruto does take that path. Boruto will go and save his friends. And on one side, you could say that, oh, this goes against Kashin Koji, but on the other side, you could say that Kashin Koji wants Boruto to end up picking this option for himself. As if Boruto ends up picking this option for himself, instead of being told by Kashin Koji, we get a Boruto who has a singularity of fate. Not only does he now have the burden, I am actively choosing to go down a path that probably doesn't lead towards the best outcome, so thus the pressure is on Boruto to actually perform and then go crazy. But the other thing you have to consider is that potentially this is what Kashin Koji is pushing Boruto towards. This is the conclusion that Kashin Koji wants Boruto to have on his own and through no other types of influences. And thus we could see Boruto awaken crazy power. However, what I do think is most likely to happen, and what everything has been leading towards, this whole concept of love, the whole battle between Sarada and Sumire, and the fact that Sarada hasn't made it public that she loves Boruto, is going to end up leading towards a conclusion that is beneficial for both Konoha. What I think is going to happen is that Boruto will end up coming to protect the likes of Mitsuki, but we do see a Boruto who ends up getting close to death. And most people say that Sarada hasn't truly awakened her Mangekyo Sharingan. We haven't seen her use her Mangekyo Sharingan abilities. They don't count it. They say that she only uses the 3 Tomoe Sharingan. Regardless of whatever point you will see, the reawakening of Sarada's Mangekyo Sharingan will be a lot cooler this time when Boruto is actually on the brink of death. This is not to discredit Sarada's previous awakening of the Mangekyo Sharingan. That's not what I'm saying, but for her to reawaken it and then use those abilities that she does have, which are most likely to end up being incredibly broken. We've seen the likes of Kamui, we've seen the likes of various Sharingan abilities that end up being crucial, and broken hacks that take you from a B tier level character to maybe a S tier or A tier. We could see this with Sarada, but it would also give more reason towards the dynamic that Boruto and Sarada have. Boruto ended up sacrificing his eye to save Sarada, and Sarada ends up awakening her powers just like she did in the past for Boruto and due to his struggles. And this time, just like the previous time, her awakening of the Mangekyo Sharingan will end up saving Boruto's life, just like her awakening the Mangekyo Sharingan in the past to send Sasuke the way of Boruto ended up saving Boruto's life, where he didn't actually despair and had somebody in Sasuke who ended up training him throughout the time escape, but in this case we would have a Sarada whose Mangekyo Sharingan would end up saving Boruto's life by actually causing Jiraiya to retreat or defeating one of the Senjus, which would ultimately lead them to collecting one of their torn souls. This is the path that the story ends up taking, and it would mean that this is what Kashin Koji has wanted this entire time, for this to be a moment where Sarada, Mitsuki, and Boruto all go through some sort of an awakening and thus end up growing stronger, leading to the odds of them being able to defeat the Senjus to drastically increase. And that's why you have to watch this video right here, as Sarada awakening her Mangekyo Sharingan is crucial in Boruto not dying in the future.